Hi. Oh, hi.
Hey, this interview is with Jordynne Ropat, who was on track since childhood to become an MD. We met in undergrad studying psych and neuroscience together. She pursued her master's, got it, and later decided not to become a doctor. She's now making vegan donuts. So check out this interview where we talk about how to find work that's more fulfilling, how to let go of the life that you thought you would have and embrace the one that's in front of you, and coming out, which she learns that I knew more about than she thought I did. Check it out.
From baby brains to donuts.
From baby brains to donuts. Oh my gosh, it's so weird thinking about the baby brains. But people are like, oh, you know, like if you're good at science and, you know, you like people enough to talk to them on a regular basis and you're friendly, then you should be a doctor. Like, that's like your option. Family all knows it. My grandparents would be like, this is our granddaughter. She's gonna be a doctor.
And people love hearing that. They love
people eat that
lawyer and doctor,
people
especially as a little kid. It's like, and it feels good to hear it.
Oh, for sure.
You're like, I'm gonna be.
Yeah, and you're like, yeah, this is me. I'm gonna be a doctor. I'm gonna save lives. If you don't have like a strong grasp on maybe yourself and who you are, the title is really attractive. I think the title for me was like, this is value. Like, I'm worth something. The only reason I even did my master's was so that I could get into med school. So I applied to med school at the end of third year and I didn't get in. I didn't even get any interviews. I wasn't 100% sure that that's what I wanted. And I think it was a blessing in disguise. Then by the time fourth year ended, I was thinking, okay, well, you know, I'll do a master's. So I joined a lab that did infant-based like MRI. It was completely out of my comfort zone, like the technology of MRI. Very like self-driven. In undergrad, like it was always
deadlines
like,
and people.
yeah, this is like when your test is, so you study for it and you do the test. With grad school, it's like, well, your thesis is due in like 2 years. All this stuff in between there is kind of up to you. What I was studying, it was really, really interesting and really cool. Maybe it just wasn't like the kind of cool that like really lit my soul on fire. It was hard for me to build a structure around something that I wasn't completely in love with. Had the realization that a lot of what medicine is today, while helpful, is so reactive. If I were to focus on anything, I would prefer to focus on something preventative.
Did you decide at one point, like, no, I'm not applying anymore? Or?
By the end of my master's, I don't remember even thinking about med school because I was just so overwhelmed with trying to finish it. Not in the best place. Like, I was really unhappy, overwhelmed. I don't know how many times I thought, like, I could just quit this, like, and no one would know, like, no one would be the wiser, like, it wouldn't matter. Having that degree is not, like, what defines me as a person, and it doesn't really mean that much to me. At that point, I was like, I would rather just, like, move on from it, but I had gotten so far in it that I was like, I can finish the thesis, I will defend it. I graduated, and now I have a master's in science. It's interesting that I found that difficult given what I'm doing now. If you're not 100% in love with what you're studying, then it's really difficult. And if you are, then it's still difficult, but you have that drive and that fuel keeping you going.
Got it. You mentioned like it not being something that you're super crazy lights you up.
Yeah.
Is donuts that for you?
Is donuts that?
So where did Plant Joy come from?
Yeah, so around Easter of last year, I made like cream eggs and peanut butter cups, and mostly just for family and friends. They were all vegan. It really kind of stemmed from my own, like, I really miss these, and I really miss having like chocolate for Easter that isn't like dark chocolate that you know, actually like tastes good. And that like kind of blew up. It ended up being really popular. I got a ton of orders.
Did you set up like a business or a page, or how did the word get out beyond your friends and family?
I set up an Instagram and like a Facebook
for chocolate specifically
in March. But it was Plant Joy.
And where's the name come from?
So Plant Joy, since it's all plant-based, like that's where the plant comes from. I wanted to incorporate like some sort of like a plant word, like where I would be literally like bringing people joy, like bringing happiness. I like sat there with the like online thesaurus, and I was reading through words, and I was like, Plant Joy. The other like kind of play on words with Plant Joy is that you can literally plant joy. Oh, I didn't even catch that one. Yeah, whatever you want, you can create, right? And you can plant joy, and you can like create something beautiful that wasn't there before.
Plants don't sprout until a while after they're planted.
Planted.
Yeah, and like for a long time you need to be working and taking care
Yep.
of something, and it looks like you're not making any progress.
Yeah.
But the work is happening. It just hasn't like breached the surface yet.
Yeah.
When did you start thinking about veganism? Like, did you make a transition? When did that come into your life?
So that was about 3 years ago. Like, I had been vegetarian at that point for like a number of years, like, but I never considered veganism because allergies to like a ton of legumes, like beans and peas and things that are like staples in a vegan diet. I watched Cowspiracy. I watched a documentary that I kind of woke up more to the environmental aspect of like animal agriculture. I had always considered myself somebody that cared about the environment, and I had cared about animals, but then it really kind of made more sense to me. I gave all my cheese to my roommate. I was like, I'm done with this. I'm gonna go vegan.
So it was an overnight kind of thing.
Yeah, it was an overnight kind of thing, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend for somebody looking to go, like if somebody's making that transition, do it at your own pace.
And now you've incorporated that into your business.
Yeah, I had never thought of myself as somebody that would go into business. I didn't understand business. I really saw business as like suits and skyscrapers and transactions and very robotic. Then when I started this, I realized like business can really be a force for good. I've had to kind of like learn all of the things along the way, the accounting side, and like trying to kind of figure out everything to make it sustainable for me. And I think if you're creating something, you should be creating something that aligns with your values.
You wake up at 2 a.m.
Some days I wake up at 2 a.m.
I've never even heard
So be at the kitchen for 3, depends on how many donuts I'm making that day.
So that you can have fresh donuts for that day?
For that day.
Did you not make them the night before? Like I guess it wouldn't be as fresh?
They wouldn't be as fresh if I made them and if I made them the night before, like then there's, you know, a number of hours that they're sitting out. They have to be made fresh that morning.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It's anywhere between 3 and 5.
How is that?
Like, depending on how many I need to make. Yeah.
It's one thing to wake up at 5 a.m., but to wake up at 2 a.m. is like a whole other level.
Some days it's a struggle. I've done, I think, a good job of building my life around that.
So you're in bed by like 6 p.m.?
Some nights I try to get to bed by 8 or 9, and sometimes it's earlier than that. And sometimes I don't get as much sleep as I should. When I'm there and I'm making them, I'm like, okay, this is fine. I make the dough. Then the dough has to proof, and then I roll out the dough and I cut it, and then it has to proof more, and then I fry them. So it's like a multi-hour process, and then I frost them and decorate them and everything like that.
Did you go through any kind of like identity shift from that doctor vision to baker? Like, do you think of yourself as a part of your identity, or is it something that you're doing, or like how do you think of that?
I don't know.
Because you mentioned the doctor thing was such a strong thing.
That's interesting that you said that, because yeah, I think maybe when I didn't have as strong of a grasp on myself, I really clung to that doctor thing as being part of my identity, because I didn't really have a strong foundation of like myself and who I was to stand on. Now that I kind of have a better understanding of who I am and what I stand for and what I want to see in this world, I don't really stake my identity on any certain thing. Which is kind of
really healthy. Yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy because it took me so long to get here. I would start like overnight doing all the prep work, like pull all-nighters, and it wasn't good for me. And there would be days that I would just be so busy that I didn't eat.
Tell me about mental health.
My master's, like, mental illness really hit me like hard because I was so overwhelmed with all of the work, and I didn't feel really fulfilled in what I was doing. You know, like living in London, when I first moved there, I lived in a basement apartment by myself. So I was lonely, you know, and I missed home. Part of my like mental health kind of journey is that happiness is not the goal. If you're living a life that fulfills you and that fills you up, all of the emotions that life brings, that to me is more important, because happiness is fleeting. Like happiness as an emotion, like sometimes you're tired or sometimes you're overwhelmed, and that's okay. And I find that most of the time I'm happy with what I'm doing. Maybe partly why I struggled so much in London was because I guess I wasn't just really fulfilled in the work I was doing.
And what is it about what you're doing now that feels more fulfilling?
Proud that I'm able to provide like something plant-based to not only all the vegans in Windsor. They'll be like, I brought this to my dad, and he's like a hardcore carnivore, and he was like, those vegan donuts, those were the best donuts I ever had.
You're shifting people's perceptions
of what good food is and what is possible, and that you don't need animal products to make something that's delicious. Food to me is love. Food is love. People's perception of like vegan food is that it's all like grains and grass and
boring and no flavor.
Yeah, like super duper healthy, and you can't have any treats anymore, and that's just not true.
Yeah, and I came across something on your Instagram page, which I wasn't expecting, and it says out and proud.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. I came out as gay like last September, and until I realized it, I didn't realize how much I struggled. Things started to make more sense, and I was like, okay. It's the same thing with the whole like I'm gonna be a doctor. I had this idea of myself. I had this idea of how my life was gonna look that I really clung to, and I was like in a relationship for 6 years with a guy who's phenomenal. Like I love him so much, and he's the best. But my idea of how my life was gonna look was that I was with this person who's also really smart, was gonna go like get his PhD, and he's gonna be a doctor, and I'm gonna be a doctor, and we're gonna have all these smart doctor kids, and gonna have this beautiful life. And it was like this fairy tale idea of what I wanted my life to look like. I clung so tightly to that idea and held that in my identity. Started maybe not thinking, I don't know if I want to be a doctor. And then when I started questioning my sexuality, I was like, I was like shaken.
These are two big things.
What does this mean for my life? Like, what is my life gonna look like now? Because obviously that meant that I couldn't be with this person that I've been with for so long, and build our lives together. Honestly, like since coming out, it's allowed me to just be who I am and not have any part of my identity or who I am based on like this idea I had for how my life was supposed to look. Now what I'm able to do is just kind of like start fresh and move forward in a way that feels good to me, and in a way that means something to me, rather than try to impress or try to, I don't know, like...
I have to hug you. Congrats, it makes me so happy to hear.
Thank you.
That's really, really cool.
So sweet. Thank you.
You seem like really happy. Yeah.
Thank you. There was a point where I felt so broken and struggled so much with who I am and what is my worth as a person.
When did the questioning start to come in?
I knew as a kid. Like I know that, because I remember like talking to my parents, and I think I was maybe 9 or 10. I remember going up to them and crying and be like, what if I'm gay? And they were like, that's okay. But I think as a kid, that identity around who I am and what I want to do for my life, and I was like, does that mean I can't get married and have kids? And I don't know if those are things that I want now, right? But as a kid, when you're watching Disney movies,
that's the goal.
That's the goal. I actually have diary entries that I kept from when I was in grade 9. They're like so matter of fact, it makes me laugh, that are like, yeah, I'm gay. And this is grade 9. Then for 10 years, then I just suppressed it.
Why do you think that was?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I think also part of it was maybe not really seeing, other than like Ellen. Like, well, who else is there like that is like a lesbian in prominent culture?
It was like Will and Grace. Like, is this all? Yeah.
Right? Will and Grace and Ellen, and and you don't really see like anything else. I didn't see any business owners or doctors or anyone in the community, so I didn't really have anything else to base what my life could look like. So a few years before that was when it came back up to my mind. At that point, I'd been dating my then boyfriend for 4 years. His family was my family, and my family was his family. It was now like not only like, is this who I am and what do I want my life to look like, but what does that mean for us, and what does that mean for my future with this person? So I really grappled with that for a couple of years, because I wasn't ready to give up this idea of being together forever and building our lives together. It started to make sense to me that if I wanted to build a positive life for myself, and if I wanted the same for him, that we couldn't be together in that same sense. I've had nothing but positive experiences since coming out, which has been amazing. My family's been amazing, my friends, so I've been really blessed. But yeah.
Similar for me.
Yeah. You
didn't know I'm gay?
What? No, dude, what? No!
Yeah, I have a boyfriend.
What? Okay, how did I not know this?
I don't know. I came out like 2 years ago.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
okay, so I didn't know this either. What?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't know that you didn't know, or if you did. That's so funny. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thanks.
Holy crap.
Yeah, and yeah, totally similar experience for me. It was just something that I was like, I didn't want to think about. I remember it's like I was like kicking the ball down the field of like, I'll deal with that later. It's not important. I felt like I wasn't getting ahead. It was that kind of this thing that I needed to address that was holding me back from everything that I wanted. Yeah, so I can totally relate. Obviously,
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
The whole time you were telling the story, I kind of just assumed. I don't know why I assumed you would know. wasn't really sure, but
no,
I was like nodding my head because I get it. I get it. For myself, after it was done, I was like, whoa, this is like
life-changing.
Yeah, like it sounds dramatic, but it was almost like I didn't even really know what living was.
Yeah, 100%.
Because you feel so free, and like it was just little things like questioning about like the kind of music that I listen to, or how I present myself, or my mannerisms.
But I felt that within myself to be like, yep, I'm gay. I like remember writing like lesbian in huge writing in my like little notebook, and I looked at it and I was like, all right, let's do this. Yeah. It really is like life affirming, and like it fills me up, like being able to just be and not have to be anything that I'm not. You don't realize how much energy you spent being who you were before until you don't have to do that anymore. When you first think about coming out, you're like, you come out and then you're out. But it's like, no, not everyone knows that you're out, and you're not always gonna come out to people. Like, not like, hello, I'm Jordynne, I'm the owner of Plant Joy, and I'm gay.
The lesbian vegan donut
I'm the lesbian vegan donut maker.
Please put that in your Instagram.
It all just goes back to like this fairy tale idea I had for my life, and if that wasn't what my life was gonna look like, then yeah, like it was like something's wrong with you. Like you're the issue here. Like fix it. But that's not possible, and that's okay. And now I don't feel like that anymore, obviously. But you just try so hard to squish yourself into this box.
A couple kind of Q&A questions.
Okay.
Is there a book or a talk or a speech that you find yourself going back to, or that you wish you came across earlier?
I've been reading Gabrielle Bernstein's book that I'm now blanking on what it's actually called.
Universe Has Your Back?
Yep, that one. Yep, leading from a place of fear or from a place of love. Like, for example, when I'm making donuts and I'm trying to decide how many do I make for today, like to make sure that I have enough and to make sure that I don't sell out. And I try to go from a place of love and not fear. So not fear that like, oh, they might sell out, or what if I have all these left over, from a place of love of like, okay, I'm gonna make this many and I'm pretty sure that it's gonna be enough for people, and if I have a handful left over at the end, that's worth it to me, rather than selling out, because then maybe somebody who gets to come in and try it who hasn't tried it yet. Is there something that you were at first really afraid to do, and after you realized after you did it, it wasn't as scary or as hard as you thought? Almost everything. I think coming out is one of those things. Starting a business and doing all of the kind of business things, having all of our ducks in a row before we do anything. And once you do it, you realize, yeah, that wasn't that bad. Right. I've never asked someone this before, but I'm curious, so feel free to pass. But what keeps you up at night? What keeps me up at night? Nothing really, because I think I'm very conscious of what I can and cannot control. Cool. And if there's something I can control, then I do something about it. And if I can't control, then I just don't worry about it. I think that's a really good place to be in. Yeah. This is the last one, and it's fitting for your business, but when was the last time you cried tears of joy? Oh gosh, I cry so much. I cry all the time. I had the day off on Monday, and my mom had the day off too. We went to go see Bohemian Rhapsody, and that was great. And afterwards, I had a bunch of errands to run, but she came with me on all of my errands and like came to the grocery store with me, and I cried twice or 3 times in the car. I was like, I'm just so grateful that you're with, and she's like, are you okay? And I'm like, it's just really nice to not be doing the grocery shopping alone right now. Yeah, got it. So it's the little things. It's the little things. It's always it's always little things. Cool. Is there anything else that you want to add? Just try to plant joy wherever you can. Cool. Yeah. Well, thank you. It is getting cold and dark, so I think that is our sign to wrap. I think this whole series of talks and interviews that I'm doing is exactly around people who find the courage to let go of what they thought their life should be like and live a life that is true to who they are, and based on both the intuition and the hunch that I got and what we've talked about today, I can see that you're doing that. So thank you so much. Keep on doing that. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. And where can people find you online? My business is Plant Joy, so you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at PlantJoyYQG. Cool. Bring it in one more time. Yeah, thank you so much. Sweet. Yay. And that's a wrap. That's a wrap. Beep.
Thank you for watching. Let me and Jordan know what you liked, what you connected with, and leave a comment if there was something that you were really holding on to or expecting in your life and you had to let go of to embrace something maybe totally different, maybe somewhat different, but definitely not what you're expecting. And we'll see you next time.
Have you heard of seitan? Not like the devil. It's like a wheat gluten-based like mock meat substitute kind of thing. So it's like.
Is it a pun?
No, it's like I don't know why it's called seitan, but it's S-E-I-T-A-N.
Try to pop some more light on you with my high-tech stand. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.